What's up, guys? Crazy days out there, right? Like, I've never seen anything like that. I'm sure nobody else has either that has solely lived in this country. It's not something I've ever been through, and so it can be a little scary to all of us, but we gotta keep our head forward, remain distant from each other, but let's communicate through social media because we don't have to be face-to-face to do that. With that said, just like many of you, I have had 2 feature films and a short film that I was supposed to work on basically postponed, which means I have more time for you guys. So that means this video is coming out a little bit earlier than it would have. I have a companion video coming out that would have made this video a lot longer, so I'm splitting it up into 2 videos. And on March 31st, I am dropping the new short film that I've been promising you guys for so long. No more apologies for me at the beginning of videos anymore because it's done. It'll be posted on March 31st. I'm also going to post my first 2 short films that I own and that I made myself to my channel so that way you guys can see the growth of how my filmmaking process is going. That said, Lume Cube reached out to me again and said, we know things are difficult right now. We have a spring sale coming up, so we want to give one of your viewers a $50 off coupon and no purchase is necessary, so it's basically just free $50 on their website. They're also giving away a Lume Cube Air VC kit to one lucky audience member. All you have to do is go over to Twitter, go over to Instagram, and follow the Lume Cube pages there, and like and subscribe on this video, and post down in the comments just a way that I can get a hold of you if you are the winner. That being said, it's a dense video. Let's get into it. Let's roll that bumper. So it's 2020, and with that, a new year, more lights for me to review and compare. In the last year, the small video light market has absolutely exploded, with a lot of companies coming out with what they think is the best light on the market. So today, we are going to compare, contrast, and review what is the best 2020 lights, in my opinion, on the market. We're going to compare them on daylight brightness, tungsten brightness, how bright they are with RGB, their versatility, and most importantly to a lot of people, how much do they cost? And then at the end, I'll tell you what my personal favorites are. You really can't go wrong with any of these lights, but there is some that are better than others. So let's get started. Before we see which lights we're going to compare today, let's see what lights we took a look at last time. Here's the overhead of what you guys saw in the 2019 Video Light Showdown. And first of all, we are going to take out the Aputure F7 because it's just not fair. It has an external battery. It's a bigger light. It wasn't fair to compare it to these other lights that are all-in-one pocket lights, so we took that one out. Next, we're taking out the Lume Cube Air and the Lume Cube because, again, these are niche lights that don't quite fit the criteria for the 2020 Small Video Light Showdown. With that being said, let's meet the contenders of the 2020 Lunascope Media Small Video Light Showdown. You might have noticed that we added 6 lights and only took away 3, so there is a lot to get to and a lot to compare. Let's start things off with a quick comparison on daylight brightness. Before I get started on the brightness comparisons, I just wanted to fix a mistake I made from the last video you might have seen. I said lumens the whole time when telling you numbers and metrics of light. I meant to say lux. Hopefully that won't be an issue this time. I hope I will always say lux. And also, all these lights were measured from about 6 feet away. Bringing up the rear in daylight brightness is the Aputure MC at 87.3 lux, followed by the Aputure M9 at 88 lux, then the Sokani X21 Pro at 110.3 lux, which surprised me that the new model of the Sokani light was less bright than the old model, but because it does bicolor, I think we can forgive it. Which brings the next light, the Sokani X21 Original, at 113.7 lux. Then comes the GVB light at 121.3 lux. Then the first RGB light on the list, the Pixel G1 at 224 lux. Then comes the Boling P1 at 232. The Aputure MX at 256. The Phottix M180 at 268. The Atomcube RX1 at 287 lux. Which leaves two lights left. Coming in second place is the Falconeyes F7 at 328 lux. Making the winner by a wide margin, the Aputure MW at 500 lux, which is pretty incredible for how small this light is. Here's a grid of the lights compared side by side. All these lights were filmed with the same ISO, shutter speed, and f-stop, and also filmed with the same white balance at 5600 Kelvin. The first thing I noticed is how perfect the Aputure lights are in daylight mode. They are spot on, color graded exactly at 5600 Kelvin, and you don't really have to work with them from there. Conversely, if you look at the Atomcube and the Boling, there's a little bit of red tint there. That's not a big deal because you can fix it really easily in the color grade, but it is something to note. Next up, we're going to compare tungsten brightness, and unlike last time, I'm not going to count lights that only have gel options. The only native tungsten lights are going to be tested at this time, which means the Aputure MW, Sokani X21, Aputure M9, and the GVB light are all out. So the first light up is the Aputure MC at 83.2 lux. Then the Sokani X21 Pro. Then the Aputure MX at 207 lux. Then the Boling P1 at 213. The Pixel G1 just edging it out at 215 lux. The Phottix M180 at 220. Which leaves just two lights again. In second place, the Atomcube RX1 with 243 lux, which makes your winner the Falconeyes F7 with a very impressive 308 lux. Here we are getting a side-by-side grid of these lights again. So when looking at the grid, the first thing you'll notice is everything looks orange because it's all still white balance for daylight, because I didn't want to mix anything up from the daylight options to the tungsten options. And again, you'll notice that the Aputure lights are spot on, while some of the RGB lights have a little bit of that red tint still in there, but it's harder to see with that orange tungsten glow. Next up, we're going to test the RGB values of the lights that actually have RGB built into them. I had to do this a slightly different way because my light meter does not measure color output. So what I did was I brought it into Premiere Pro, and then from the Lume panel, I looked at the parade scopes and measured how high on the IRE the top peak was for each one of these lights. And then from there, I took the value from the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel, adding them all up to give the final score to see which one averaged the highest RGB values. Bringing up the rear is the Aputure MC at 61 IRE. Then the Falconeyes F7 at 62 IRE. The Pixel G1 at 65. The Boling P1 at 72. And the Atomcube RX1 is the brightest red channel light with 77 IRE. Moving over to the green channel, the Aputure MC is 53 IRE. The Pixel G1 comes in next at 68 IRE. Then comes the Boling P1 at 70. The Atomcube RX1 at 72. And the Falconeyes F7 has the brightest green channel at 88 IRE. And lastly, the blue channel. Surprisingly, the Falconeyes had the lowest blue channel at 72 IRE. Then the Pixel G1 at 80 IRE. Then the Aputure MC at 82. And the Boling P1 and Atomcube both tied at 85 IRE. So when you add those all together, in last place in brightness, but probably first place in color quality, the Aputure MC, followed by the Pixel G1, then the Falconeyes F7, the Boling P1, and the top output is the Atomcube RX1. Next up, we have versatility. I am a huge fan of lights that can do multiple things, which is why versatility is a big category for me. Bringing up the rear are the lights that just do one thing, but they do it very well. GVB PL12, the Aputure M9, and the Sokani X21's a little bit ahead of them because it's a little bit brighter and made a little bit better. Then comes the Sokani X21 Pro, which for obvious reasons beats the other ones because it can also blast tungsten light instead of just daylight. The Aputure MX comes in next because it's, again, a daylight and tungsten light, but it can blast it a lot brighter than the ones that came before it. It also has a boost mode, so you can really get as much out of the light as you possibly can. Then comes the Phottix M180, which is kind of an outlier among these lights. It's kind of in a league of its own, which is kind of funny because it's exactly the same as the Lume Cube panel, only $50 cheaper. I love that this light is packaged as more of a companion for a cell phone. It's almost the exact same size as my Android phone, and I really like that because my pocket's already used to carrying that around. Also, it's daylight and tungsten and all the flavors in between, and just for a caveat, it can charge your cell phone. That's awesome, and that gives it an extra point for versatility. Next up is the Aputure MW, which I know what you guys are going to say. It doesn't natively blast out tungsten light, but it really blasts out daylight at a rate that when you put the tungsten filters on the front of it, it's not going to affect it very much, and it's waterproof, which really ratchets it up on the versatility scale, being as none of these other lights can you dip in the water. Then comes the Boling P1. These last RGB lights, I'm kind of pulling at hairs, and I'll tell you why each one is where they are. The Boling P1 is amazing. It has a little bit less effects than the other lights, and a couple of the other features and no app, and that kind of sets it back just a little bit. But still, the fact that it's RGB, bi-color, and really goes the spectrum of Kelvin puts it up there pretty high on this list. Next up is the Falconeyes F7. It's a little bit of bump above the Boling because it's a little bit brighter, has a little bit better interface, and has a few more effects. It's this high on the list because it's RGB, has daylight and tungsten, and really has a wide range on the Kelvin spectrum. That's the Falconeyes F7. In third place for versatility is the Pixel G1. The fact that you can charge your phone on this light is all I need to say with versatility, but I'll also say it has RGB, is bicolor. What more do you need to say? That's why it's so high up on this list. In second place, the Aputure MC. Now, the Aputure originally wasn't going to be this high, but they recently put out the Android app. Thank you, Aputure. The Sidus Link app used to only be available on iOS, but now it's available on both iOS and Android, and it's a really, really cool app. It's actually neck and neck with the Atomcube only because it has a feature on its app that most don't, and that's the color picker feature, where you can pick a color from another light and match it. That's invaluable. And yeah, that's why it's in second place on the versatility list. Number one is the Atomcube RX1. It's really close between the Aputure and the Atomcube. The reason I put the Atomcube ahead is because I really, really like the app on the Atomcube. It doesn't have the color picker, but everything else is really sleek, really easy to use, and it's a lot brighter than the Aputure. The Aputure has better color when you look straight on, but only by a little bit, and it's easy to fix with color grading. I like my color grading, so yeah, that's why it's a little bit higher on the versatility list. Next up is the metric you all came for, the price of these lights. Let's see which one's the cheapest, huh? The most expensive light on this list is the Aputure MW at $209, which is still a pretty good deal, all things considering. Then comes the Atomcube RX1 at $170. The Aputure MX, which is priced at $149, still pretty expensive for that light, if you ask me, in 2020. Because a light like the Falconeyes F7 is only $140, and it gives you RGB and all that other goodness. Then comes the Boling P1, beating out the Falconeyes by $1 at $139. The Pixel G1 at $110, which might be one of the steals of this list. The Aputure MC only costs $95. The Phottix M180 says I can beat that by $1 at $94. The Sokani Pro is only $65 if you need something that's daylight and tungsten. The Sokani Original is $46. The Aputure M9 beats that by $1 at $45, and the cheapest light on this list, as we all probably already knew, is the GVB PL12 at $40. That's a pretty good deal for a light if you just want an accent light. Actually, these are all pretty good deals. One caveat I will say, prices change all the time. This is just while I'm recording the video, these are the prices that I got. If you want to buy any of these lights, links will be available in the description. It'll help me out if you click on those links to purchase them, and I would greatly appreciate it. But if not, hey, that's okay too. I'm just glad you're here watching this video. And with all those nice metrics and comparisons out of the way, there's only one comparison left, is my favorites. So let's see what my favorite light is if you really care. And again, I love all these lights, but I had to make some hard decisions, and yeah, here they are. The GVB is last because, unfortunately, it's the GVB, followed by the Sokani X21. The only reason the Aputure M9 beats that is because the Aputure M9 was the OG, and I have to give it points for that. Then comes the Sokani X21 Pro, basically the same thing as the Sokani X21, but with bi-color capabilities. Then's the Aputure MX, which is the tank of all these lights, but it's a little bit too expensive for my taste. The Phottix M180 comes in next. I was really impressed with this light. Did not think it would be this high on the list. Aputure's coming in next with the Aputure MW, and then the Aputure MC. Really impressed with the Aputure MC. I would really like to see them put the capabilities of the MC into like an Aputure F7 body. If you could mix those two lights, now you got something that's going to be at the top of this list in the 2021 Small Video Light Shootout. Next up, the champ has fallen. The Boling P1 comes in 4th place, meaning there's 3 new lights that I like better than the Boling P1, which won last year. That's not a bad thing. That means technology is pushing forward. In 3rd place, the Pixel G1. A great little light. It really has a lot of features. I like that I can charge my phone on it. I love the RGB. In 2nd place, the Falconeyes F7, meaning my favorite light of all these lights is the Atomcube RX1 because of its app integration, because of its brightness. It doesn't have the best quality light, but I am confident in the fact that I can color grade. And this light does everything I want it to do. That is why it is my favorite light out of these lights. And I might change my mind tomorrow. I don't know. But right now, while we're shooting this video, it's my favorite light. It changes every day. Oh, well, there it is, guys. The 2020 Small Video Light Showdown is over. I'm glad you stuck around. If you stuck around to the end, be careful out there, guys. I want everybody to be safe. Just keep a level head. Everything's going to be all right out there. And just remember that in this business, it's not a competition. Let's all rise together. I'll see you guys next time.